It was another informative Tuesday at the Whitty Hayes Athletic Center because we got to talk to Ohio State defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, who's become one of our favorite interview subjects in the short time he's been here, I would say. Always seem to learn a lot from him. Ohio State getting ready to play Michigan State. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Meads and Doug Lesmerises. And we're getting to know, week by week, a little bit more about just the standards, the high standards that Jim Knowles sets for this team. But at the same time, how much he puts on himself. There was a question today about, where did you come from? Where did you get this attitude of Saturday is on me? Like the other 6 days of the week are on the players and getting better, but Saturday is about him. And he said it stretched back to his Duke days and David Cutcliffe telling him a good carpenter never blames his tools. And that's kind of how Jim Knowles approaches how he sets up this defense.
It was interesting because he kind of caught himself trying not to say that the players at Duke weren't very good, right. But he was saying I was coaching a bunch of future doctors and lawyers, but not a lot of future NFL players, and they would overthink things. And so giving him that kind of free pass, he kind of made a joke about hey, there was a sale today, and I'm handing out free passes for you guys to make mistakes. And then now he's applying it to a bunch of defensive players who are going to play in the NFL. And it was just because he said that before. Saturdays, those are on me. But it's well, what do you really mean by that? I thought it was interesting because, again, we've had a lot of questions along the way of you've never coached talent like this, so how's it going to be different? And this is a situation of he started that idea because the players weren't that talented. The Saturday mistakes are on me, and now he's applying it here, but you can see how it works in a different way, and he does feel like it frees these guys up to just go play. He's an interesting guy, and I think every interview session we do get a lens into how he thinks, and it's not just oh cool, he thinks this way. Then that's how he puts this defense together. So I thought that was really valuable.
In the preseason, Ryan Day said something about Ohio State should have a top 10 defense, and Jim Knowles came back and was like, hey, why not top 5? That's what my standard is. And at the time, it seemed like some bluster, like some coach speak, we just got to one up each other, and it's all about showing that I have high standards. But today we specifically asked, you guys are 11th in the country in third down defense, prevention, opponent percentage on third down. And he said, I was actually annoyed. I looked at that number and I was like, that's not good enough. Our standards are higher than that. It kind of reinforced what he said before, that he came here knowing that there's in a brief amount of time that he gets to turn this into a good defense. This can't be a long-term rebuilding project.
Yeah, and so far it's looked pretty quality. Now, granted, we're saying that while they haven't necessarily played a decent offense to test any of that stuff yet, and a lot of those types of opponents will be on the back end of the schedule, but we see the pieces at least, whether it's a Tommy Eichenberg, who apparently grunts at him as much as he grunts at us. So kudos to Tommy Eichenberg, or it's Mike Hall, who just walked past, who has emerged as a player. We're seeing some of the pieces, Steel Chambers maybe locking down that will linebacker role in a way we didn't see the first couple of weeks away from Cody Simon. So we're seeing the pieces, and now it's almost like the second half of the season is going to put a stamp on it and validate whether any of this was real or not. Because, yeah, they're 11th in third down conversion, all that stuff. There's some stats out there like they're top 10 in yards per play. Those are all good stats with the context of who they've been playing. So now it's about seeing it against good opponents.
Yeah, I was asking him today the question about the difference between creating pressure and getting sacks. Feels like we've been talking about that since the day that Chase Young walked off the field at the Fiesta Bowl with this program and that dichotomy. And he said that's more on him, that you want the pressure. He feels like the pressure has been good from the defensive line, but that the sacks are a relationship between pressure and coverage, as we've talked about before, and that it's up to him to keep installing more of this defense and figuring out a way to make that happen. And we've got a lot more to talk about, I think, with this defense, not just this week, but as we go ahead. So get Buckeye Talk, subscribe wherever you can find podcasts, and get our texts, 614-350-3315 for intel, analysis, everything else about Ohio State football all week from Buckeye Talk.